of you. On behalf of Anekdhara, I welcome you all to our 31st monthly webinar. The theme of today's webinar is Indian Demographics, Myths and Reality. Friends, we all are aware that we live in the most populous nation of the world, and we are also aware the importance of a population policy, and especially with a country with the largest population, we are aware of the stress it can cause on factors such as water, land, on the overall economy and ecology. We are also aware of the issues relating to the demographic dividend, how to manage it, and the issues relating to gender parity and that of missing women. So overall, we are all aware of the importance of the issue of demographics in India. There are a few immediate reasons why this theme is very topical, as topical as it is important. These relate to our society, our plural society, and secondly, to our public policy. In May 2024, very recently, the EAC2PM released a working paper. This working paper pointed to the growing share of the minority population of Muslims and to the reducing share of the majority population in somewhat misleading a manner, because it does not show the sharply reducing growth of the Muslims. Secondly, it makes a sweeping statement saying that the fact that the share of the minority population increased in India is a pointer to their well-being. Now, demographers have kind of debunked this point. They have called it, to put it mildly, disingenuous. This kind of a sentiment is also reflected. We have reports in the past of the slur and the campaign during the elections of Hum Panch Hamare Pachis, or the legal wrangle relating to the latest film, Hamare Bara. All these point to a certain deliberate political disinformation leading to have us believe that increased population growth is perhaps this phenomena has its root in the Islamic way of life. Now, for some, this is a faith because of the way they are carried away with the disinformation. For us, there is a need to go into the root of it and have the notions dispelled. Now I come to the last major reason why this theme is topical and important. That relates to public policy. We are now in 2024. The 2021 decadal election census has not yet taken place, nor is it been notified. So it is shrouded in some kind of opacity. For whatever reasons, if the decadal census may not be held, it has grave implications on public policy. Economist activist John Rees has recently written that a properly done census could justify allocations for almost 100 million people to be covered under our programs relating to right to right to work and right to food. So, friends, in all, this is a very, very important and topical theme. And to speak on this topical theme, which has great relevance and grave implications for our society, for social cohesion and public policy, we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. S.Y. Quraishi. I now have the honor of introducing this celebrated administrator, thinker, a writer. Dr. S.Y. Quraishi is an Indian civil servant who rose to be the 17th Chief Election Commissioner of India. For 9 years, he served on the board of International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, Stockholm, for 9 years. He figured in the Indian Express list of 100 most powerful Indians of 2011 and 2012. Dr. Quraishi has been a member of election observation missions in several countries, including South Africa, Kenya, Russia, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Pakistan. In October 2018, he, along with the late Kofi Annan, was appointed as the Global Ambassador of Democracy by International IDEA, an intergovernmental organization. He has published numerous books, including his most recent work, India's Experiment with Democracy, The Life of a Nation Through Its Elections. He has delivered lectures and keynote addresses at the University of Oxford, at the Kennedy School in Harvard University, and at the Columbia University, New York. Currently, Dr. Quraishi is the Chancellor of IILM University in Gurgaon, India. Before I hand over the thing to Dr. Quraishi, I would like to request our audience. We wish to make this webinar interactive. So as the webinar progresses, I request the participants to post their questions on the YouTube chat box. The questions will be taken up after the speaker's address is concluded. I request the participants, as they post their questions, also to give a short introduction of themselves. I now request Dr. Quraishi to kindly address the audience on the theme Indian demographics, myths and reality. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhuji, for a very generous introduction. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are on this web stream. I'm very happy to be invited by Anekdhara. I did not know about this organization, but when I got their message, I thought they're a group of well-meaning, public-spirited people and intellectuals, and they've chosen a very good topic, and I feel very honored to be participating in it. The topic with that you have selected is actually a perennial topic, at the same time a hot topic any time of the year, any time of the day. So it will continue to be live at all times, as Madhuji also referred to. Now, the demographics, myth and reality. I would start from the beginning. When I was growing up and when I was studying, we used to hear about population explosion. Two things we were all concerned about, the whole nation: population explosion and the brain drain. Actually, they were interlinked because people were going out of the country because there were not enough jobs in the country, and because the growth of population could not, and the job market, they could not match, and that's why they were going out. But before long, both these things are forgotten. In fact, they have become our asset. The population is, we have now become almost 4 times that what we were at the time of independence. And at that time, we were short in agriculture. We used to import wheat from outside. In fact, we were dependent on American charity PL 480 program, which gave us wheat. And our poverty level was extremely high. And it was feared that with the increasing population, things will get worse. But population has increased 4 times. But agriculture has grown, I think, 8-10 times, because now we are a surplus country. And we are even exporting with all this addition. So, secondly, the brain drain, which was looked down upon with contempt earlier, is the bane of, is a boon for India's economy. About $100 billion of remittances are coming into India, which has changed the look of India's economy. And this has been possible because of the large human resource. The same population which was considered a liability was declared officially in the 1980s by Rajiv Gandhi, Prime Minister then, into human resource. The Human Resource Development Ministry was formed because from humans we became human resource overnight, and which actually was quite reflective of the economic reality. Our manpower started going to different countries and in service sector, and they started sending money, which has drastically changed the shape of India's economy. So the population has to be looked upon as an asset rather than a liability, which India has proved. Now, but what are the myths? So current myths. So the earlier we cannot call a myth because that was a serious apprehension at that time. We did not know how what the future held for us and how population growth will actually become a human resource and our strength. So, but what are the myths? The only myth I think which is still going around is about the Muslim population, to which Madhuji referred. Um, uh, we have heard and we hear it every day and from so-called educated people and illiterate people and everyone that Muslims are multiplying like pigs, and they are the cause of the population explosion, and as a result they are the shortage of schools and hospitals and all these facilities. The real cause are the Muslims. Nothing can be farther from the truth, as has been brought out by my book, which I published 3 years ago. It is called "The Population Myth: Islam, Family Planning, and Politics in India." Let me first explain the title. The number one, there is a myth which I'm going to explain, and what not one single myth, but several myths, and all associated. And why Islam? Why politics? Because it is argued, it is the propaganda is that Islam encourages high birth rate, not doing population control, etc. And there has been a lot of politics around it. Now, where this book started accidentally. I'm not a population expert. I'm not a demographer. By academic training, I'm a historian and I'm a civil servant. So, and my only exposure to family planning was that as a collector and earlier as a sub collector, we used to have targets during the emergency and before and after. We used to have targets for family planning and for vasectomy, for tubectomy, and all that. So that is all we were exposed to, and that was the entire experience of family planning I had. Um, but in 1995, the UN FPA's country director, who was a Canadian, a white Canadian, with whom I had worked for 2 days on a Haryana project or communication, because my PhD is in communication, which of course is my, I can say, a bit of my expertise. On that basis, he says he came to meet me, and he said, "Mr. Quraishi, we would like you to write a strategy paper for the government how to propagate family planning among the Muslims." So at that time, even my belief was that Muslims are producing too many children, and they needed to be told about family planning. So, and what is the Islamic position? Even I was not very clear. I started from scratch. But in fact, first I argued that this is not the subject on which they should hire me. They were, but they said, no, no. He insisted that no, you can do it and you will do it, and it's a 1 or 2 months job. Please accept it. So reluctantly, I accepted this offer, but with a condition. He was offering me consultancy at that time of 1.5 lakh rupees for the couple of months which I was to spend. 1.5 lakh was a lot of money in 1995, because my salary was 5,000 rupees. But I said my condition is that I will do it pro bono. I will not charge anything at all. He was quite surprised. And he said, why will people come to us putting pressure for consultancies, and here you are, you're declining a lucrative offer. I said, yes, this is a subject which, to my mind, is of national interest, and I would rather do it pro bono. He said, no, we don't take free services. You'll have to charge. So we negotiated this, the payment. And that what we agreed on was I'll charge 1 rupee. Now, whether it is 1 rupee or 1 million, it is a financial transaction. So we have to follow all the procedures of the government of India under which I was working. So we signed a contract. I took permission of the government of India, because deep down in my mind I knew it is a sensitive subject and it could become controversial, and I did not even know what my findings will be. So we signed that contract, and I started working on it. Instead of 2 months, since it was not full time, I was continuing with my job. I was joint secretary in the Ministry of Youth Affairs. I continued to do it part time, and I took 5 months. But this study opened my eyes. I discovered many myths which I tried to bust, and I wrote a paper, a 32-page paper, which I gave to UNFPA, and happily circulated it by just photocopying it, and 400, 500, or 2,000 copies were circulated, and they were extremely well received. Then I was invited by many people to give lectures on the subject. Normally, when you go for a lecture, they give you an honorarium of a couple of thousand or 5,000. I said, on this, I will not charge a rupee. This is my national contribution. Let me do it pro bono, which turned out to be, and my inner voice, which prohibited me from taking any money, turned out to be very right. Before coming to the conclusion, I'll complete this story. 4 years later, when my paper was out, which said that Islam is not against family planning at all. In fact, Islam is the pioneer of the subject of family planning. And I quoted from the Quran, from the Hadith, from the Sharia, and everything authentic. So, but I got a call, but at that time it was only a paper. I was in London, staying with my daughter in her hostel, the hostel called London House. So by then the mobile phone had come. I had a mobile phone. I got a call from somebody, my namesake, Dr. Quraishi, who's introduced himself as a president of Muslim Doctors Association of UK. He is probably from Hyderabad only. So president of Muslim Doctors Association. He said, Mr. Qureshi, we have read your paper and we have many issues to discuss. I could sense the tone was, I would not say threatening, but it was quite disapproving of my paper. So I tried to wriggle out of this, because when I was writing this paper, by the way, that was the time when Taslima Nasreen and what is his name, the famous author of Midnight Children, what is his name, Madhuji?
Salman Rushdie.
Salman Rushdie. Now, Salman Rushdie and Taslima Nasreen controversies were at its peak. So my friends were warning me, look, don't write something for which you will get beaten up. So when I got this call 4 years later in London, I didn't want to get beaten up in London. It doesn't mean that I'm happy to be beaten up in Gurgaon or Delhi. So I tried to wriggle out of it, and I said, look, I'm going back. I have a flight tomorrow. So which flight? I said, Air India. So it goes at 10 o'clock or something. These two guys reached the airport the next morning with some literature. And his very first sentence still rings in my mind, and which says a lot about this story. He says, Mr. Qureshi, family planning is a Western conspiracy against Islam. And now looks into this one, and they hire mercenaries like you through UN agencies to write such papers. Now, the fact that I was getting 1 rupee or whatever, So I was hired, and if I was hired, I become a mercenary professional, and UN agency had hired me. So therefore, every charge would have stuck on me. If I had, fortunately, I have not claimed that 1 rupee also till today. So since I had not taken any money, and I was able to hit the back on them hardly with as much force as I could, I think, look, I'm not a victim of a Western conspiracy. I have written this book very sincerely, very honestly. Argue with me on merit, what is wrong? And I said, "Okay, look, the American and the British and the Europe can be anti-Muslim, which they are. But this family planning cannot be their conspiracy, because if that was the case, they will tell the Muslim countries to adopt family planning, and they themselves would be producing many children themselves. But that was not the case. Their family planning acceptance was very high in America, in the UK, in Europe, to the extent that even the replacement rate, they were below the replacement rate, their populations were declining. So, so I said, look, this cannot be their conspiracy. I agree that they are anti-Muslim, but this cannot be. And tell me, they gave me some literature. Okay, look, this is by a Christian doctor. This is from American so and so, so and so. I said, I'll read all that and send me more if you have. But please do not misunderstand me and read what I've written carefully. So anyway, that is the end of it. They never got back to me because they had no ground to hit back. So anyway, my paper was initially, since I argued for family planning, and I advocated family planning among the Muslims, so more Hindu audiences naturally liked it very much. I was scared of the Muslim audiences because they might say, look, who the hell is this Maulana who is saying that Islam is pro family planning and all that, and he's interpreting the Quran. Who is he? How much does he know? And all that. And my fourth or fifth presentation in Delhi on this was scary, because that was the time when JNU and Delhi University professors of Arabic and Persian and Urdu, they were coming, and that was a mixed audience, more Muslim, and which was my first test. And so somebody, a professor from JNU, got up and he says, we want to protest. I got scared, the protest. And what was his protest? It was more of a joke. He said, okay, I want to protest that Mr. Quraishi, a bureaucrat, has strayed into our territory, academics. So in a way, it was a left-handed compliment. So that was the test, because nobody found any fault with my presentation. Then many people said that, you have come out with a revolutionary finding. Why don't you write a book? I started writing a book, and it took me 25 years. Not that I'm so slow, but what happened was that every time the book was nearing completion, new data will come in. And when I say data, basically I'm talking of National Family Health Survey, which comes every 5 years. It started, the first one came in 91, 92, which data I had used in my paper, what was just a paper at that time. And every time I was nearing completion, new data will come. So I'll wait, because the new data will may completely demolish my theory. But every NFHS kept on strengthening the points which I had made. And now my book contains data up to NFHS 4. But just after that, NFHS 5 came. So, but my presentation is updated with NFHS 5. It has improved the situation even further. So it is now unmistakable trend. There is not the slightest doubt left, because for 30 years and more than that, the situation has been what it is. Mr. Madhuji referred to the population growth of the Muslims.
Yes.
We found, this study found that Muslim rate of growth of population is acceptance of family planning is the highest among all communities. The Muslim birth rate is going down. However, my book begins with the acceptance of two allegations. The two allegations against the Muslims which were being raised were, number one, that Muslims do not adopt family planning. So my answer is yes, their adoption of family planning is the least accepted, and because of which their population is increasing. I accept that it was increasing, but not like this, but very, very slightly. And because of which demographic balance of in India was getting disturbed. To that extent, there also I have started with a confession. Yes, it is true, but if you look at the figure, what is the imbalance which happened from 1951 to 2011 census, which is the last census? How much was the increase? 4.4%. For 4.4 percentage points. In 1951, Muslims were 9.8% of the population. By 2011, they became 14.2. And Hindu population was 84% in 1951, and it came down to 79.8 by 2011. 4.2 or 4.4 percentage point. This is the entire increase in the Muslim population. Now that on that basis, the propaganda that हम पांच हमारे 25 they are going to overtake. They are deliberately producing children to increase the population, so that they could capture political power. That kind of propaganda has been going on till today. So, and they would say they were most hardcore Hindus will tell the Hindus to also produce 10 children like the Muslims, so that Muslims do not overtake them. That's all the kind of rubbish which we have heard all these years. What is the reality? In this presentation, if we go through, I think we can now go to the slide. So I'll take you through basically 5 myths. There are many more, but I'm focused on 5 myths. Are Muslims overtaking the Hindus? Incidentally, you will notice SOAS to 2nd August 22. This presentation was first made in SOAS in London, the School of Oriental and African Studies. So since no change has happened after that, I'm using the same thing. There was no point in changing the titles because there is no change in the content, except some updation of the figures based on NFHS 5, which I'll just now tell you. Come to the next, please.
Next.
Now, there are several myths being spread about Muslim population which are creating fear and hostility among the Hindus against the Muslims, which perhaps is the intention of this propaganda. They want to create that fear. 80% population is fears 14% population. It is threatened by 14% population. What kind of timidity are you talking about? 80% people, you are scared that this minority, and they're feeding their children, 3-year-old children. The way this virus has spread even to the children, basically to create fear and hostility and hatred against the community, which is absolutely wrong, besides being rubbish. Now, myth number 1. Next slide. Number 1, myth: Muslims produce too many children and are solely responsible for the population explosion. So, as I said, yes, Muslims have the lowest levels of family planning, only 47%. And their TFR is 2.3, which is the highest. This is my confession, admission. This is their allegation. I'm admitting it. Now, what is TFR? Let me explain to those who may not know this. Total fertility rate. And what is total fertility rate? That is the rate, that is the number of children a woman is likely to produce in her own lifetime, in the entire lifetime. So, which is 2.3 currently Muslim. But the fact that Hindus are not far behind, with the second lowest family planning at 50% and second highest TFR of 2, is completely myth. I mean, does it mean that Muslims produce children, Hindus cannot produce children? What nonsense! This is an insult to the Hindus. Don't they produce children? They also are human. They are also normal. They also have the same thing, and they have the second largest population growth, and the second lowest family planning at 58. 47% Muslims do not practice family planning. 47% have adopted family planning among the Muslims. 58% Hindus. The difference is not very much, which means virtually half the population of the country, half the population of Muslims and Hindus still do not do family planning. Yet we have achieved a lot. Now, so therefore, the fact that Hindus are close second is never ever mentioned in the debate. So, and I will tell you some interesting figures from there. Between 1951 till 2011, a net increase in Muslim population was 13 crore, 13.6 crore. And of the Hindus, 67.7 crore. Now, are Muslim from this figure, do you see that Muslims are overtaking the Hindus? Hindus are increasing and increasing. See the gap. Thus, major contribution to population explosion came from the Hindus as much as 5 times more than the Muslims. Now, the gap between Muslim and Hindu population increased from 26 crore to 80 crores. So that is the gap now. There are 80 crores more Hindus, and to say that they are threatened by the Muslims, nothing can be more rubbish than this. But since it is repeated ad nauseum, even I'm very pained to see even educated people. My Hindu friends tell me that their families are divided on this issue. There's so much of hatred has been filled into their mind and has gone into their head, which is a pity. But at the same time, there are secular people who are fighting on these issues, and they're all Hindus. I have often said that India is secular because Hindus are secular. And for this, I was questioned once by some foreign channel. Yeah, what do you mean by that? I said, look, India was partitioned in the name of religion. Pakistan was created as Islamic Republic. But at that time, India could have easily become a Hindu Rashtra. But India chose secularism, and by a constituent assembly with 94% Hindus in the constituent assembly, and unanimously they adopted a secular constitution. So, because basic ethos of India and of Hindus is secular, because of 5,000 years of history, which some people are trying to distort. But we have seen the latest result where my theory has been proved right, that Hindus are secular. They don't like the kind of disinformation which is being spread. Now, that the propaganda that Muslims are overtaking the Hindus is absurd. Next slide, please. Now, second, Muslim population growth is upsetting the demographic balance. As I said, yes, there has been increase in Muslim population and corresponding decline in the Hindus, no doubt, but it is only a 4.4 percentage point. Now, to become majority, I imagine they were about 10% in 1951. What is majority? They should become at least 51%. Now, if in 60 years they have increased by 4 percentage points, how long will it take for them to increase by 40 more percentage points? 600 years. 600 years. And the propaganda says by 2029 there will be a Muslim prime minister. That is the propaganda. And there are so many genocide calls. Kill them, otherwise they will take over. That is the kind of rubbish that we hear day in and day out. And look at this figure. So, and if nothing changes, whatever has been happening for the last 6 years continues, it will take 600 years for Muslims to become from 14.2 to 51 point whenever it happens. Now, fact is that Muslims are adopting family planning faster than the Hindus, which is the point Madhuji had made in his opening remark, which is very significant. The gap in their number of children is narrowing. And by the way, the impression which was created by all this propaganda, that if a Hindu family had 2 children or 3, Muslims had 8 and 9. And family health survey, which is a government of India survey, says that the gap was never more than about one child. In 1991, 3 years ago, the gap, according to NFHS 1, the gap was 1.1 children. The Muslims had only one child more. And it has come down to 0.36 NFHS 5, 0.3. Not even one child gap, only 0.3 gap. That is how Muslims are adopting family planning, which is a great thing. And we should congratulate the Muslims for not falling prey to any propaganda or some ill-informed mullahs that Islam is against family planning. They are adopting family planning. That's a fantastic thing. Next myth, please. Slide, please. Now, this, I don't know why this data is missing, but this is quite simple. In this, I have shown, I already mentioned that the gap initially, which was 1.1 in 1991, has been coming down and has now come to 0.3. This slide, which is now somehow not showing, is nothing but a graphical representation of my previous slide. So we can move to the next one. Now, myth number 3. There is an organized conspiracy by Muslims to overtake the Hindu population to capture political power. And they are about to succeed within a few years. And right-wing appeal to Hindus is to produce 8-10 children themselves. Imagine if there is a competition between Hindus and Muslims for a procreation, where will India go? We'll have a population explosion, which we used to fear in the 60s and 70s. We'll come back to that. Fortunately, Hindus have not accepted this right-wing propaganda. They are not producing 8 to 10 children. They have adopted family planning as much as they could, although almost 42% they still have to adopt family planning. Almost half of them have not adopted family planning, which means we need to do a lot more. But fortunately, these people who are not doing family planning are mostly confined to 4 northern states: UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan. So these 4, if we focus on them, and they were called at some point by the Professor Ashish Bose as a Bimaru state. Bimaru actually doesn't literally mean Bimar or sick, because it was an acronym of Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and UP. And it got an interesting term, and which has become very popular. Now, fact is, no Muslim leader or scholar has asked Muslims to produce more children to overtake Hindus. I know there are some Muslim scholars who say don't do family planning because it is against Islam. But they don't say produce more children to overtake the Hindus. I've never heard. If you have heard, please point it out to me. You flag it to me. Right. Now, this is the last bullet is very interesting. It occurred to me that I'm a student of history. As I said, I know nothing about mathematics, but I had heard about something called mathematical model. So I asked my friend Professor Dinesh Singh, who was Vice Chancellor of Delhi University, himself a great mathematician, to do a mathematical model for me that at the rate when the Muslims are growing, how soon will they overtake the Hindus? So with the help of his colleague Professor Ajay Kumar, they prepared a mathematical model and which demonstrated that Muslims can never overtake the Hindus. Not to talk about our next 5 years, never ever. So any hope which I may have had of becoming the Emperor of India dashed to the ground because it's not for 1,000 or 5,000 years. Next slide, please. Now, this is a polynomial growth model. I'm not a mathematician. I don't even know the word polynomial till I saw this. And so this is the model. And if you see, the bottom line is the growth of the Muslims, and the upper line is the growth of the Hindus. So, do you see Muslims overtaking the Hindus here from this model? And Professor Dinesh Singh is not my cousin. This is mathematically, he has proved that this is how we have growth. And to convert this into a lie that Muslims are overtaking, watch out, kill them, let's have a genocide, that kind of call we are having. Let them look at this graph. Then, having received this graph, I went back to Professor Dinesh Singh. I said, this is about the last 70 years. Can you show me what will happen in the next 70 or 700 years? So please go to the next slide. Now, this is the next slide for you can take it. This will go on for 1,000 years or 10,000 years. This is how the graph will go. The Muslim is bottom line. The Hindu growth is the upper line. The gap is increasing, and not narrowing. So what are they talking about? So I think this is the most conclusive and academic and logical, from all points of view, this is the conclusive evidence that the propaganda is all political and rubbish. Next slide, please. Now, Muslims use polygamy for increasing population. हम पांच हमारे 25 again I was happy to hear Madhuji refer to it because this was coming in my presentation. हम पांच हमारे 25. Now I didn't want to say, and I would not say which leader, the top leader of the country, who had made this statement कि हम पांच हमारे 25, which means I have 4 wives and 20 children, making us 25 in all. And these days we also hear हम चार हमारे 40, and he also mentioned a film हमारे 12 something. So all they deliberately mischievous, there should be criminal prosecution for this, because this is creating hatred. And there are enough articles in the Indian Penal Code where 153 is particularly, which create the misunderstanding of breach and hate between communities. And these are the statements which will create the hate. And so these are criminal offenses making these statements, but people are getting away with it. Now, now Muslims are polygamous. Have you seen all the ladies and gentlemen who are on this show today? Have you seen any one Muslim with 2 wives in your life? In my 77 years, I haven't come across a single Muslim with even the second wife, not to talk of 4 biwiyan, not to talk of 4 wives. I have not come across. So, कहाँ हमारे leaders को 4 बीवियां हर मुसलमान के घर में दिख गई? How are they peeping into Muslim homes to find 4 wives? I don't understand. So now, what is the fact? Fact is that there was only one Government of India study in 1975, which found that all communities had some polygamy, but the Muslims were the least polygamous. Let us see the next slide, please. Now, this is the slide from Government of India study. Mind you, every single data which I am referring to, every single figure is from Government of India data. Now, incidence of polygamous marriages, lowest among Muslims. Tribal communities, which since Muslims are not tribals, 15%, mostly Hindus, 15%, Buddhists, then Jain, Hindus 5.8, Muslims 5.7. Now, this is a very interesting finding. And if this is the case, I tell my Muslim friends, look, if you do not practice polygamy, why are you fighting for your right? Demand a ban on polygamy. If you Muslims demand ban on polygamy, it is the other communities who will run for cover, because you are not doing family planning, you're not doing polygamy. So what is your fear? So, which is another dimension. Now, I wanted to see whether this is a one-off study and it is a free. So I went back to data of census of 1931 and 41 and found exactly the same trend which had been continuing. So this is not a freak data, but that was the trend that Muslims, they are only notorious for family planning, but actually they are not practicing family planning, polygamy. So they are notorious for it, but they are not actually practicing it. Okay, then let us see the next one. Now, polygamy statistically is impossible. And in fact, I met some top leader of the right wing a couple of years ago, and gave him a book and then told him that why polygamy is not possible. So, because there are the number of women for every 1,000 men is only 940 as per census of 2011. And in fact, this has become worse in 2020. There are only 922 women against 1,000 men, which means 78 men out of 1,000 will not find their first wife. When they can't find their first wife, where will I find my second wife? Not to talk of the third or the fourth. So, because the gender ratio is adverse, polygamy in India is statistically impossible, and this has been the ratio always for the last 100 years. Now, another important question: whether Islam encourages family planning. This is a general misconception both among the Muslims and among the non-Muslims. Non-Muslims normally would not know, but for the political propaganda, that Islam encourages family planning. The reality is different. Islam only permits polygamy subject to conditions, um, which are very stringent conditions. That in fact, there is only one verse in the Quran, and I've quoted this surah, which you may refer to. Surah Nisa. Nisa means woman. And it said, this is Allah is talking about in that surah about the orphans and including the widows, that is boys and girls, because there used to be tribal warfare. Men will die in the warfare, they're leaving behind their widows, and with the widows who are leaving children. So the context is orphans, where Allah is saying, treat the orphans kindly, nicely. Do not be dishonest to them. Do not misappropriate their property. Do not replace their good thing with your bad thing. And in fact, the best will be that you may marry from among them one, two, three, or four from among them. Now, after reading this, I'll go running looking for my second wife without completing the ayat of the Quran. It goes on to say, provided you can treat them equally. And treating equally is not easy. Now, what does it mean, equality? I bring a second woman home as my wife and send her to the kitchen to wash utensils, whereas my first wife is the queen. That is not the kind of polygamy which is allowed. It is only permission, it is not encouraged. And in fact, the Quran itself says, okay, since the absolute equality is very difficult to achieve, therefore you are advised to marry only one. Now, operational clause is marry only one. Now, secondly, one thing which even all our Islamic scholars talk of this equality condition, but one condition which they have missed and I have flagged is actually the ayat itself says it is talking of the orphans and the widows, and it says from among them you can marry two, three, or four. And if you read Hindustan Times, everybody is looking for a virgin woman to marry. What is this? Who will marry the widows? So it says from among them you can marry one, two, three, or four. So to me, that is the first condition. So, and which we cannot be missed. Next line, next slide, please. Now, this is the last myth, myth number 5. Islam is against family planning. So, which is where many ulama or Islamic scholars also, not serious scholars, but local mullahs make a mistake. Nowhere has the Quran prohibited family planning. And Quran has prohibited many things. Like, for instance, sex outside marriage is haram. Sharab, drink is haram. Taking interest from the poor on the loan is haram. And there is a verse in the Quran which says that whatever we wanted to prohibit for you, we have explained to you in detail. Now, Allah could have included family planning in that. Family planning is haram. Quran nowhere has prohibited family planning. In fact, there are many verses of the Quran which are interpreted because Quran has been subject to interpretation, and some interpretations are for and some are against. Now, those who say, family planning is un-Islamic because Allah says if a child is born, He will provide for him or her. That is wrong. The context was the Arabs used to bury their daughters alive. And shockingly, that is the situation which prevails even today in India. What is the sex determination test? What is female feticide, which is happening? What is the reason for 1,000 male children, 1,000 girl children are born, but their number, as I showed you, is 922 because they are aborted. The girl children are aborted even today. What was happening 1400 years ago in the illiterate Arab society? So it was in that context. Look, do not kill your daughters, because if they are born, we will take care of them. So the mullah says, anybody born and keep producing and he will provide. He has promised. No, that is not the promise he made. The promise he made, if anybody is born, of course, they do. Our population has become 4 times, and we are now much better off than we were 70 years ago. Now, there are when you talk of Sharia has 4 components. First is the Quran, like the Constitution of India. Second level is the laws, where in our case it is Hadith, which is interpretation, which is the practices of the Prophet as reported by the many researchers. So that is the second level. And the third is ijma and qiyas, which means interpretation and collective decision, वगैरह वगैरह. We will avoid all that detail. Now, sterilization, when I was studying this, what does Islam say? Sterilization, however, is forbidden by interpretation, but birth spacing is not only allowed but encouraged. Spacing is allowed. Now, that is all exactly the policy of Government of India, that sterilization should be the last resort. Avoid as much as possible tubectomy, vasectomy, because if the same result could be achieved by spacing the children and by non-permanent, non-terminal methods like use of condoms or pills or whatever, there are so many methods now available for spacing and controlling the birth. So sterilization. Now, interestingly, despite the fact that I studied the interpretation by Islamic scholars worldwide, and I found, despite that, 20% Muslims in India have even resorted to sterilization against Islam, yet they have done it. So much of demand exists among the Muslims for family planning. Now, for the benefit of Islamic scholars, of all the interpretations for and against, this is the ayat which I have picked up to me, which is clinching. There is an ayat, every chapter is called a surah, and the ayat, the number is mentioned in the 24th chapter, 33rd verse. Let those who do not have the means for marriage keep themselves chaste until Allah gives them means out of His grace. So now, marriage, you become adult and married. No, it says unless you have the means for marriage, and till then keep yourself chaste. Do not run after other women outside marriage. So till Allah gives you the means. Now that is also the Government of India policy, which is why we have minimum age of marriage, because if a child marries at the age of 15 or 13, that boy, can he support a family? Surely not. But at the age of 21, at least he can be employed and he can look after the family. Of course, effort should be that even that should be delayed, not legally, but by choice. Next slide, please. Now, what the practice was, whenever something said by Allah in the Quran was not clear to people, they will go to the Prophet for clarification. So one young man who was very poor, he went to the Prophet complaining. It's and he said, look, I don't have means. I'm a poor man, but I have sexual needs. What should I do? So Prophet repeated that ayat, and I'll repeat it for you, O young men, those of you who can support a wife, those of you who can support a wife and household should marry. What about the others? Now, for marriage keeps you from looking with lust at women and preserves you from promiscuity. But those who cannot should take to fasting, which is a means of tempering sexual desire. So here, Prophet told this young man, till you are able to support a family, don't look at other women left, right, and center, but start fasting, because fasting will temper your sexual desire. So even the method of controlling desires has been mentioned. And third is absolutely clinching. One man with many children went to the Prophet and said, that I have many children and I don't want to have any more. But I want to practice al-azl. Al-azl is coitus interruptus, which is withdrawal method, which was the only method known in that time. So so this guy said, told the Prophet, I don't want any more children and I want to practice withdrawal method. But a Jew tells me that is a minor infanticide. What does he mean by infanticide? Because if you allow your sperm to be thrown out, sperms are getting killed. That is infanticide, according to. So on that, the Prophet replied that said that the Jew lied. The Jew lied. If he's saying it is a minor infanticide, he's wrong. You want to practice al-azl, go ahead and do it. So what can be more explicit permission to practice family planning than this? Next slide, please. Sorry, the Madhuji, I'm exceeding, but this is important. So,
sir, please take your time, sir. This is
okay. Another 5-7 minutes. Now, Islam is in fact the pioneer of family planning. That is something on which many Muslims have objected to me, because they want only them to be interpreting Islam and not a man like me. So it does, but from whatever I've shown you, that Islam is not only opposed to family planning, but in fact the pioneer of the concept. There is a professor of Al-Azhar University, which is the most important Islamic university in Cairo, Abdul Rahim Umran, Islamic scholar. He says it is a wonder to the thinkers of today that Islam should give so much importance to child spacing and family planning so early in human history and in the absence of compelling population pressure. अब 1400 साल पहले तो population का कोई pressure भी नहीं था. Abadi was never the issue. And that time Islam is talking of restricting family in the name of rights of women for good health, right of children for good upbringing, and so on, and the whole lot of them, which are, my book is full of them. Next slide, please. Now, it is not a Hindu-Muslim issue at all. That is another dimension of my study. It is not a Hindu. Actually, Hindus and Muslims are shoulder to shoulder. They are in the same boat, because birth rate and population increase is not dependent so much on religion as on socio-economic factors like literacy, income, and delivery of family planning services. And the level of these conditions varies from region to region. We have been hearing ever since I grew up that Kerala has a very good practice of family planning. Tamil Nadu, South Indian states have done extremely well in family planning. So, if it was considered against religion, my feeling is that South Indian Muslims are better Muslims, more sincere in their practice of Islam than we North Indians, but they practice family planning. Now, there are so many interstate variations in fertility. The lowest TFR, total fertility in Kerala is 1.56. And the higher TFR is in Bihar, 3.4. So therefore, how can we say that there is a Hindu rate or a Muslim rate? Because the rate differs state to state depending on the socio-economic condition. Now, in 25 states, Muslims have lower TFR than Hindus in Bihar. Why do I compare with just Hindus in Bihar? Because to prove the point that if Islam was the factor, in 25 states also, the Muslim would have not done family planning. They would say Islam is against family planning. So, and why the TFR highest in Bihar? Because in Bihar, uh, Hindus are equally poor. Muslims are poor. They have low literacy. They have low income. Their services are in bad shape, which is why Bihar is lagging behind. There is nothing like Hindu fertility or Muslim fertility. For example, Muslim TFR itself ranges from 1.74 in Tamil Nadu to 4.11 in Bihar, while that of the Hindus ranges from 1.42 in Kerala to 3.29 in Bihar. In this range, so what will you call the Hindu rate or a Muslim rate? So it is our region specific, but dependent on socio-economic conditions. So high fertility of some communities in some regions is on account of regional socio-economic factor rather than religious factor. Next slide, please. Now, this is a very simple slide. Illiterate people, the very first thing, illiterate people, no education, if they produce 3 children, compare it with the last figure, 1.7, if they have passed 12th class or more, so the number goes down by 50%, virtually 50%. You will see, and this cuts across all communities, whether Hindu, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Christian, anyone. With literacy, the higher the literacy, the lower the number of children. This is a slide, Government of India, NFHS 4. All sources are mentioned. Next slide, please. Another, now education delays the age of marriage. Illiterate people marry at 7. Again, all communities, if illiterates marry at 7, those who have done 12th class, they marry 4 years later, 5 years later at the age of 22. Now, 5 years delayed marriage means lesser children, millions of lesser children. So, therefore, we should focus on education, because education will delay the age of marriage, which will cut down the number of new births. Next slide, please. Again, as the marriage gets delayed, the number of children goes down. It is a graph on the similar subject, so we can skip it. Next. Now, household wealth. Second factor, as I said, was income. Higher the income, lesser the children. Now, the lowest, the poorest people have 3.2 children. Richest people have 1.6 children. And you will notice it is going down without exception across communities. As the income goes up, number of children goes down. So we should focus on income. We never hear of income. Next, please. Non-workers have more fertility than workers. It is virtually the same point. Next, please. As the service delivery improves, the TFR goes down. Now, for family planning services, you need a doctor, you need nurses, you need hospital, you need services, don't you? So now this is a factor which is established now. Let us see the facts on the ground. Next slide, please. Where do Muslims stand in all these socio-economic factors? At the bottom. I'll show you some figures. Next slide, please. In literacy, Muslims are at the bottom. Next. Look at this. Sorry, similar graph is missing for this. The Muslims were at the bottom in literacy. I don't know where the graph has gone, but it was the same thing. Across all communities, Muslims are the green thing on the bottom. Now, availability of antenatal care is lowest for Muslims. You see they're at the bottom. But interestingly, don't miss, as I said, Hindus and Muslims are shoulder to shoulder. You will notice in all the graphs, including the missing graph, which you could not see, immediately after the Muslims are the Hindus. If a Muslim performance is the worst, The second worst is the Hindus, which they don't talk about. The best people to equip to criticize Muslims, if you see this graph, is the Sikhs. They have the best the family planning practice, but they are also called anti-national in a different context. Next, please. The availability of health infrastructure, lowest among the Muslims. Again, you will see that. Followed by the Hindus, which is another dimension of this study. Next, please. Availability of advice of family planning, lowest for Muslims. You can see that. Same source, NFHS. Next, please. Now, therefore, one point which comes out is that the socio-economic factors, which are the determining factors for family planning, are the lowest among the Muslims. And the second point which comes out, that actually Hindus and Muslims are not on different ends of the spectrum. They are shoulder to shoulder. Therefore, we have to address our family planning program, population control program, to both the communities together. They are brothers in arms rather than enemies. Now, family planning in Muslim countries, there is a chapter on that. So we find that in Islamic countries like Iran is considered the most conservative Muslim country. They have the best family planning in the world. Then Egypt, Indonesia, even Bangladesh has overtaken. Bangladesh is doing well. They will break away from Pakistan. Pakistan is doing badly. Bangladesh has done extremely well. They are better than India, although they are predominantly Muslim, because they do not consider it an Islamic. So next, please. Now, in the previous slide, Indonesia was the first model of where the government is they are 95 and 99% Muslim country. They adopted family planning as a state policy 50 years ago. And their imams in their Friday prayer, in their khutbah, they talk of family planning. Imams go door to door. They preach family planning. So instead of saying, don't do it, it is un-Islamic. So same thing was done in Bangladesh, and they've done both extremely well. Next, please. Population and political propaganda. The right wing continues to provoke Hindus to produce more children by creating fear, which we have already mentioned. I have also mentioned the next bullet, which is the mathematical model. Next, please. Now, Muslims and Hindus are in the same boat. This is also a point which I made. TFR of Muslims is the highest at 2.3. Hindus are the second highest at 2. What is the gap? Only 0.3. And even this 0.3 would come down if there is something called unmet need. NFHS surveys have repeatedly indicated unmet need means the people who are willing to do family planning, but family planning services are not available to them, which means that their need is not being met. And they have found that the highest number of people whose desire for family planning is the highest and their need is not being met are the Muslims. 16%, about 16%. If you meet their need in the next 6 months, so you see they will overtake every other community in just 6 months. They want to do family planning. We have already done the more difficult job. Persuading people to do family planning is more difficult, which we have already done. They are willing to do it. But why? Because doctors refuse to go to Muslim clusters. I have heard thousands of times, mini Pakistan. Every Muslim colony, Muslim cluster is called mini Pakistan. All of you must have heard it also several times. So mini Pakistan, they don't want to go to so-called mini Pakistan. So how will they do family planning? Which is one of the reasons. Please tackle that problem and see how the situation improves. Unmet need will be addressed. Now, National Population Policy of 2000, which was done in Vajpayee time, had targeted TFR of 2.1 by 2010. Now, TFR 2.1 is the replacement rate. For those who may like to know, replacement rate means there are two parents, mother, husband, wife, a population of two parents. They will die and their two children will take over. the population gets replaced, two are replaced by another two, right? But what is this point one doing here? Point one is to take care of the children who will die early. At the age of 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, which means they will not be replacing. Then the population will go down. Husband and wife die, and instead of two children, there is only one child left, so the replacement is not complete. So, therefore, population growth should be TFR of 2.1. Less than that will mean the population will start declining. So now, which might be good news for some, and might not be a good news for some others. In many European countries, where it has gone down so much that their populations are in the fear of extinction, and they're giving cash incentives and all kinds of incentives to produce more children. As many as 25 states of India have already achieved the target of population policy, and only 4 northern states are lagging behind slightly. Next, please. Where is the failure? Now, this is the last but one slide. Where is the failure? Obviously, administrative, because India was the first country in the world to have a national family planning program, which means the realization was there from the beginning. And all plan and policy documents recorded high birth rate of Muslims, but no solutions were offered or attempted. Real factors were not addressed. Literacy, poverty, service delivery were not addressed. No effort was made to dispel the myths. For instance, when I was writing my paper, I wrote to the Joint Secretary, Ministry of Health, who was dealing with family planning. So what is the propaganda material you have created to promote family planning among the Muslims? Her reply was politically correct, but scientifically silly. Her reply was that we make no discrimination. Damn it, you have to make discrimination. I'm a social marketing PhD. Social marketing tells us people are no target audience. There are segments, literate or illiterate. For an illiterate person, would you like to have a very colorful book to teach them? They can't read a letter, and this is for literate and illiterate. You have to have a different communication strategy. Rich and poor, urban, rural, old, young, men and women. For them, because every segment requires a separate approach to deal with them. So to say, we have only common program. Now, if Madhuji, you come to my house as a family planning worker, Quraishi, you have too many children, so you should do family planning. And I give you a reply, look, my religion does not allow me to practice family planning. You will have no answer and you will just go back. We should provide our workers the answers, which I am providing. No, you should be able to argue with me. No, you are wrong. Islam does not stop family planning. In fact, and then you can quote the same ayats which I have mentioned, and I can give you more. Now, no training is given to health staff to dispel doubts in the minds of people. No fact book or a resource book was prepared for health staff, communicators, or politicians. Political leaders have been indifferent to family planning. Interestingly, only a few years ago, 5-7 years ago, a committee was formed by National Institute of Health and Family Welfare under my chairmanship to see what is the attitude of politicians to family planning. And we found total indifference. And what we did was the committee surveyed 20 years of parliament questions. 4 parliament, 13 to 16th Lok Sabha, lakhs of parliament questions, and we found only 0.15% questions were asked on family planning. Because after the emergency backlash, politicians are very shy of talking of family planning, which is a pity. We should, in fact, we prepared a booklet for them, how Madhuji in his opening remarks, they mentioned the schools and hospitals and all that. So we prepared a booklet for them. Okay, look, if somebody is talking of school and health, lack of facility, please do bring in family planning there. This is how they are linked. So I don't know what happened to that later on. Next and final slide, please. Next slide. recommendations. Yeah. Now, national population policy is a great idea. And I have finished the book by saying that, no. Yeah. So I finished the book by recommending to the Muslim that you are doing very well, to keep it up. Shabash, keep it up, and do family planning even more proactively. Those 50% who have not yet adopted, they should be approached to adopt family planning, because that is their future. Keeping a family small and taking care of them is the guarantee for the future for all communities. So I'm a totally pro family planning man. Now, a special effort must be made to educate those who are resistant to family planning. True Islamic position must be understood and propagated. A staff must be trained to answer people's doubts and sensitivity. A resource book must be created for staff and political leaders, the one I mentioned. And faith leaders must be involved. Ulama, as Indonesia and Bangladesh is done, ulama and media men may be sent to Iran, Indonesia, Bangladesh to study their success story. वहाँ success देख के आएंगे तो when they come back, they will talk about it in their country. We should send we should invite the ulama of those countries to interact with our ulama. So therefore, since this book is addressed to Muslim, which is why this suggestion. And success stories of family planning in the country of all communities should be disseminated. Muslim youth must be encouraged to participate in family planning programs. All communities must work together for population stabilization, and all kinds of false propaganda must be dispelled with a collective effort. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I'm ready for.
Thank you, sir, for such a edifying, informative talk and presentation, that you had done research at the cost of being accused of things, and in such a dedicated manner. The hard work and commitment in doing the research actually is given away in all the insights you shared with us.
Switch on video, sir.
It says host is stopped.
Host is very cruel.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you are.
No, sir. While you are talking, so I hid him.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. No problem, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And it was so enlightening, informative, and all these insights come because of the hard work and amount of research you have done to dispel and demolish some of these canards which are being spread with obviously political motives, electoral gains, all these things at play. That you proved that Islam was a pioneer of family planning is actually a revelation. Most people may not be aware of this. And the myths about polygamy you have dispelled with equal emphasis, based with a lot of empirical support. And the final thing, the takeaway for us, which you have given, is that this is not a Hindu-Muslim issue, and that this is an issue which has to be tackled together for our Indian society in a more concerted manner. You have, of course, mentioned so many things about the resource book and the kind of things we have to do to improve the socio-economic context of our population. And thank you so much, sir. There are a lot of questions. There has been immense interest and a lot of compliments, of course. So we'll be taking up, first of all, a few of the viewers want to know if you could share this presentation.
Yes, please go ahead, do it. Yes,
with your permission, sir, we'll put it on the Anekdhara website.
Yes, please do that.
That we will do, because this is a very, very important research work and
Yes.
lucidly explained, and it will benefit. Yes, sir.
But
I
go
also
on,
have a copy
on
of the book.
Amazon, you find a lot
Sir.
of discount on this book.
Ye-
Please buy this book.
Yes, yes, sir. I also bought it recently from on.
Yeah, because the book has a lot more than I have presented to you.
So one, I'm trying to club some questions together. There are a lot
Yeah.
of them. Firstly, we'll share the presentation on the website. So one is also Miss Yamini Iyer and Miss Nagamani Rao. They also have said on the same subject, and this is facts can easily be inundated by perception, especially reinforced by perpetual and perverted propaganda. It will be deadly if political power stokes the perception. How do we counter this info spread on social media? That's the thing, sir. More, the social media seems to assist. So the question about three or four questions are related to this. These fallacies are being spread through the social media. What kind of course, it's a very difficult thing. What is your take on this? How can we counter this?
Well, actually, social media is a tricky subject because we cannot say it is all bad because it can also it is like you take a taxi and you go to take a taxi to go to a mosque or you go to a cinema or go to a bar. So taxi is innocent. So it is the passenger. So WhatsApp itself, social media is innocent. What rides on this is the crucial thing. And the fact that the people are spreading poison are using it more effectively or more widely, that is the worrying thing. And the only answer is you play the game on the same turf. You also use the social media like including Anekdhara or any NGO, the think tanks and others, whosoever has technical capability, you also use this and try and make the right information viral, spread it because information can be, disinformation can only be countered by information fact based on facts and figures. You will notice in my entire presentation of over 1 hour, I had made no emotional appeal.
Yes.
Just facts and figures, hard facts and figures, cold facts and figures. So, and in fact, let me tell you some interesting thing. When I was writing the book, HarperCollins, they have a legal team. They were reading every line of it, and every day they will write to me, hey, look, you have quoted this, what is the source? Second day, another source. I got fed up. Hey, look, these guys have become a nuisance, pain in the neck. But with hindsight, 450 citations which I collected. And by the way, they were all collected by my very young research assistant, a young lady called Shairi Misra in Durgapur, whom I had not even seen because it was a COVID time. That little girl, 21-year-old, if she's a brilliant child, so I will send a query to her, and by the evening she will send me the citation. So the fact that every single fact, figure, anything mentioned here is cited. So which is why till today not one adverse comment has come on this book. Because I'm not even given my opinions. It is only I've just put the Government of India data, NFHS data in perspective. That's all. So therefore, social media is doing a lot of damage, and partly deliberately and partly innocently. Because for instance, you and I also get WhatsApp messages. I also forward them. If I like it, I find it funny. If I like it, I forward it. Sometimes it turns out fake. People say, look, why didn't you check? How can anybody check? What is the fact check mechanism available? Which means we should stop forwarding any interesting stuff also. So lots of interesting WhatsApp I forward to my friends. So therefore, in knowledge should be shared. So let us have a study like Anekdhara, make a small group of the technology expert and make a communication strategy how to counter disinformation by spreading information,
Yes.
authentic information. Yes.
Very well said, sir. disinformation can be countered only by proper, well-researched information. So there is a question by Mr.
I
Kamla.
was just 1 second. Again, in support of my, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
If you go on Amazon, you'll find about 230 or something comments on this book. Except for the first three, which were very hostile when the book had not even come out, only on the basis of my faith and Quraishi, so anti-Islam, anti-Muslim, all kind of rubbish which some of these trolls do. उन्होंने सारी बकवास कर दी. उसके बाद about 220 plus comments. It has opened our mind, it has opened our eyes, we changed our attitude. Most of them, 95-98% by the Hindus, which is what proves my point, because basically Hindus are secular. So when they saw facts and figures, they have said that it has opened their mind, and they have admitted it. Go on Amazon, it is all there. It's not that I'm talking from my mind or bragging. Just see, go to Amazon and you'll just read the comment. इक्का दुक्का मिलेगी, वो तो die hard trolls हैं. वो उनका तो काम ही गाली देना है, कुछ भी कह लो वो गाली देंगे. लेकिन यहाँ इस केस में तो 99% praise आई है और from Hindus आई है, which means they are open. So which supports my point that when you counter disinformation with information, authentic information, people respond positively as they have done in this case.
There is one comment and question by Mr. Kamlakar Babu. He says that Hindu majority is the biggest myth, as all others than Muslim and Christian are Hindus. In fact, SCs and STs form 30% of Hindu population, are a part of Hinduism, as Dr. Ambedkar said. How to expose this truth effectively so that Hindus may focus on setting their house in order instead of playing the Hindu-Muslim foul game.
Very, very good point. Extremely good point. In fact, I was reading only yesterday. I'm reading a book. I'm reviewing it for the Tribune Chandigarh. A book by Professor Mujibur Rahman, Shikwa-e-Hind, which is the future of Indian Muslims. Then I was reading there that one organized effort of the right wing is exactly to do this, to unite those 80% Hindus. Okay, look, you are 80% Hindus, you're all one. So come under one umbrella, to bring them under one umbrella. This is an effort which is being made very proactively and in which they are substantially successful. But at the same time, there is a lot of resistance. And this point raised by our friend is extremely intelligent, and this needs to be brought out. And even the latest election has shown that the one section of the population which felt threatened by the possibility of change of the constitution and end of reservation, went the other way.
So there is another one where Ms. Sita Mahalakshmi, she agrees with you and says, again on the same issue, how to the propagandists have succeeded despite the Hindus being as dogmatic as the average Muslim. So how do we stem this rot again of the propaganda? We've already handled that, sir. Disinformation can be countered by this thing. In more than 50% of the constituencies where Honorable PM canvassed, BJP lost. Does this mean that the rejection of PM's anti-Muslim tirade, that Indian Muslims are infiltrators, producers of more children, some commentators, has been rejected? If so, how do you read this anti-Modi verdict, sir? That is, if it is optional, sir. If you choose to respond,
okay.
Otherwise you can move on.
Yeah, no. Actually, it's a very good comment and very good point, and a very good commentary. Again, I come back to my original statement, which I meant that India is secular because Hindus are secular. Who has rejected in Ayodhya, where the temple was built, on which the entire movement, political movement has been based for the last 20 years or 15 years, they rejected the party. They should have been grateful for the magnificent temple which has come up. But they defeated the party by 2 lakh votes. So, and the constituency where our top leader made this communal statement, that there the candidate was defeated. And I've received lots of WhatsApp and social media. We were talking about lots of messages about 12, 13 places which are associated with Ram. The election was fought in the name of Ram, and all those 10, 12, 13 places have defeated the party which was fighting in the name of Ram. Now, this is India. This is, there is no other place like India. In this, you have the response, and even illiterate people, poor people, this is how they have responded. So, my young lady friend who just now mentioned, she has a great point. And people, secondly, people don't like, beyond a point, hate is counterproductive. Frankly, I had once written an article, I can send it to you separately if you just remind me, I'm a forgetful man. Polluting young minds. 3-year-old children, they're 3-year-old children telling a Muslim child, तू मुसलमान है तो यहाँ क्या कर रहा है, तुझे तो पाकिस्तान में होना चाहिए. वो उसको मालूम ही नहीं कि पाकिस्तान क्या चीज है, क्या नहीं मालूम, लेकिन उसने माँ बाप से सुना, उसने अपने स्कूल में आके ये कर दिया. तो ये this has becoming common by a deliberate propaganda. My optimism used to come from the fact that number one, that the basic ethos is secular, and secondly, public memory is short, and there is resilience. After partition, when millions were killed, after 5, 7, 10 years, we found Hindus, Muslims came together, they were working together, they were friends, they were doing business together. They forgot about it. The agony of partition. 92, Babri Masjid demolition and the riots, and then they got over it in 5, 7 years. Now the situation which is being created is more dangerous because deliberate by a campaign, children's mind are being poisoned, and a child, childhood memories last very long. Now, this is counterproductive for the Hindu children also. A child should not know what is fear. A child should not know what is hate. Child should only know love. Child should only know security, playing together happily. So now, if the whole generation is being brought up on fear of the unknown other, the community, it is bad for the health, mental health of our generation. We are raising a generation of neurotics. In the long run, you will see the consequences. They should just know happiness. So no, they're being taught the kind of hatred even in our nursery schools.
So the next lot of questions by Mr. Vikram Simarao and Shashikiran, they relate to the lot of the general Muslim community. Why is it not improving economically? At the same time, they also point out in many HDI indices, Muslims and Hindus lag similarly behind. Yes. So how can we it is the evil elite that is preventing them from working together for common development. And there's a related question. In my opinion, Muslims should encourage modern education than madrasa education to get out of their sufferings. So basically, why is it not improving, and how do we improve the lot of the Muslim communities?
Well, I think about the first part of the question, the economic status of Muslims actually has increased. Like of every community, even the Muslim status has the kind of poverty which we had 40 years ago, we don't have now. That way things have improved. However, what is dangerous is the propaganda and the call for economic boycott of the Muslims. On the one hand, now we have proved that poverty leads to a high birth rate, right? And when the right wing says, don't do business, don't buy even vegetables from the Muslim vendor, so he'll become poorer and he will go home and produce more children. Will you be happy then? So the fact that these even educated people are making this stupid call for economic boycott. Hindus, Muslims, all communities are interdependent on each other. In Moradabad, the brass industry, owned by the Hindus, but all the workers are Muslim. And when the riots happened, now you will notice in Moradabad, riots will never happen because they realized the entire industry collapsed because the Muslim workers ran away and they were running the factories. The Hindu factory owners were making the profits. So both of them were losers. So they realize interdependence. So, but here there's an economic boycott, call. Earlier, the question was, what should we do to counter it? Like use social media. Whenever you see somebody making a call for a boycott of Muslims, make a noise. Let there be a tweet from Madhuji or from all those people who are in this program, because even a small effort, even one voice makes a difference. We should, but we all wait for others to do something. We should. Our job is to counter it. What nonsense are you saying?
Yes.
Okay, don't do business. Don't do buy vegetables. Don't do. So economic boycott. So see the consequences on family planning. So they don't have integrated long-term thinking for the immediate reaction, because once you are filled with hate, hate takes away all your rationality. This is the reason you can't think reasonably once you hate. And hate and anger, there are, if you Google, there will be lots of quotations. If you hate me, your hate will not reach me. But if you and you're angry with me, your anger will not reach me. It will only increase your blood pressure. It will affect your health, not mine. Anger cannot reach me unless you physically come to bash me up or lynch me. That is different. So the second point, what was the second point? He made 2, 3 important points.
Madrasa education.
Yeah. No, madrasa education actually, again, because of propaganda, bar, bolte jao, so madrasa has become a dirty word. Madrasa is an Arabic word for pathshala. Nothing more, nothing less. If we start calling it pathshala, that will be fine. Madrasa is an Arabic word where dars or lesson is given.
Yes.
Now, a time when the primary schools have come now in the proximity, only now in the last 5, 10, 20 years. Because madrasas have been there for 100, 200 years, because every village, now every Muslim child is supposed to study the Quran. Where will he go and learn the Quran? In government primary school? What nonsense is being talked about? Abolish madrasa. There is a school. Madrasa is performing a different function. So now, who will provide my children Quranic education? They want to. Every child is supposed to learn the Quran in childhood. Whether they follow it up or not is a different thing. So where else is this service will be available? Secondly, there are not many madrasas, because there were no schools in the neighborhood, have now started modernizing. They have computer education, they have mathematics, they are teaching science, they are teaching all others. But if it is a very small madrasa with only one Maulana, the Imam, between namaz, he has 5, 6 hours when he teaches the children Urdu or whatever language they want to see. So actually, there is no conflict with the madrasa. Of course, the content will matter. If they are teaching terrorism in madrasa, or they could be, we have seen many engineers have been caught again on the charge of terrorism in Bangalore. Engineers, they don't teach terrorism. So because it is the content of what you are learning, formally or informally, that is what is polluting the mind. Otherwise, madrasa is a very harmless device, institution for giving an education which no other institution will give.
So then, there have, of course, been a lot of praise, sir. Interesting presentation. Thank you for organizing. Then a brilliant and very academic Dr. Duda says, brilliant and very academically oriented. I would appreciate if 2023 Global Multidimensional Poverty Index would be the leading paradigm in taking forward our future. So there are two questions. Of course, we would like to take your thing. Last two. One is, of course, on the fact that the 2021 decadal census has not been held. And what would its impact be? What are the consequences on our public policy or society?
Well, yeah, the very good question, because that's something which I don't have an answer to, because I am also asking this question. What is it that the government is trying to hide? with the we have noticed that the government is very uncomfortable with certain facts and figures which do not suit them. What is it that they're scared of? In the name of COVID, they postponed. COVID was lasted 2 years. And I have been a civil servant. I have done census 10 times in my career, not in 4 or 5 times. It's a 1 or 2 month exercise. Even now, if you start it tomorrow, it's 2 months, the data collection will be done because some millions of teachers, they'll come door to door and fill up a form. That is it. So what is it that the government is trying to hide? There is surely some game which is being played. It may have something to do with the political, very important thing, that delimitation and in the context of parliamentary seats was frozen in 1971 first for 25 years, and in Vajpayee's time it was extended by another 25 years for the reason which is related to our current subject, family planning, that states which are producing more children, and if the number of Lok Sabha seats are allotted on the basis of the population, 50% of parliament will be in UP and Bihar, 50% of the MPs, and the Tamil Nadu, the all southern states which have done extremely well in family planning, they will be punished. They've reduced the population. Instead of being rewarded, they will be punished, which is why in 1971 there was a hue and cry, and Parliament decided that we should freeze this allocation. The number of seats will not be disturbed based on population for 25 years. In 2000 time, this was raised again in Vajpayee's time, and they came to the same conclusion because the logic has not changed. Even now, it has to be to 2026. It's supposed to be the delimitation. Maybe it has something to do with that. That I don't think the logic of the last two the decision has changed. Same logic stands today. Now, Tamil Nadu के MPs reduce हो जाए, Kerala के because they've restricted their family population growth, and Bihar और UP को दे दो सारे. So how is it possible? Personally, I feel it will be logically, morally, legally very difficult not to extend the date. But सरकार के लंबे हाथ होते हैं, बहुत बहादुर सरकार हो तो उसके तो और लंबे हाथ होते हैं. तो देखो क्या होता है. So I feel I have no answer. Maybe my more educated friends in this group can enlighten what could be the reason, what could be the game behind it, because it is totally pointless. Administratively, I can tell you, logistically, it is a 2 month job. In fact, to be clearer in my mind, I spoke to a friend of mine who was Director General of Census not very long ago. So he explained to me, he said, just exactly 2 months job.
Sure. Actually, Mr. John Rees had written an article in the Hindu 1 week ago or so, alluding the fact that for the next delimitation to apply to the 2029 general elections, the census should be conducted in 2026. He is suspecting perhaps there's a game to push this, but we don't know what the truth is. But he underscores the importance of proper census data for public policy planning.
Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. But there is something government is scared of. Otherwise, there is no reason to postpone it. COVID is long gone and everything is normal.
So, one last question, sir. What is the viewpoint of Islam on the issue of adoption?
Well, Islam allows adoption, except that property rights cannot be given to an adopted child. That is the thing. So I haven't studied the subject in great detail, but Islam has reservations about adoption because it insists on biological children getting the inheritance. So inheritance is the key issue behind adoption issue.
So that's about it, sir. I think we've taken care of all the questions, and thank you very much, sir. And it's been
If there is any hostile comment, would you like to kindly share with me?
There has been nothing, sir. Only one was there, not that it was not hostile really. It was saying that don't you think that when the particular thing you quoted from Islam, that whether when you say that you should marry only when you have the means, and treating wives equally, don't you think it has got an alpha male or a patriarchal trope about it? Should we
No,
not
no,
have a more secular outlook in debunking everything that comes against equality of women, equality of people?
no, 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 no. No, no. In fact, okay, if equality of women was the thing, if an illiterate man marries,
So,
and the Quran itself says that when you can bring up how when you can support a wife and a child. So now, if Islam is talking of supporting a wife,
so,
is it anti-women? It is protection of women. So I think we have to interpret it, look at it positively. The logic is totally irrefutable, and that is the policy of the government. Also, why do we have a legal age of marriage? It is very unscientific, very arbitrary. 21 and 18. Why? The moment you become adolescent, you are fit to marry. So a boy of 15 can marry, a girl of 11 can marry. So, but why do we have that age? For exactly for the reason that you should be able to support a family, and there should be uh, this is in favor of healthy family. That age is determined, and in fact, there is a demand that it should be further delayed, which to my mind is wrong because that will increase atrocities against women. At least at 21, a boy can marry if he's not allowed to marry even at 21. So there are many incidents of rape happening because of desperate characters.
so
Really.
that's
So,
about
anyways,
they call it is all positive, and this also was in the form of
yeah. I think no,
a
no, it's
reform-oriented kind of a question. I
good.
don't see anything negative in the YouTube chat, and I think, sir, we were utterly fortunate. Anekdhara was utterly fortunate for having your kind and ready consent on this topic. We couldn't have had a better speaker than you. In fact, I was discussing with Professor Pushpesh Pant, and he suggested nobody else other than Quraishi Saab. And now with this talk, I'm going to thank Professor Pant too for suggesting your name. And you, of course, we are eternally grateful for having agreed to do this thing. I want to thank my entire Anekdhara team, sir. You met Gagarin, Smita Rawat, who was here, and Mr. Sadiq, of course, who's the backbone, who's the technical backbone. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
And
sir.
for the viewers, we have our next webinar will be in the last week of July, and that will be addressed by Dr. Madhura Swaminathan on a topic related to agriculture. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. It's a wonderful session.
Very beautiful.